Hello, you're watching Outsiders with the routinely rapturous Rowan Dean, the perpetually pleased Rita Panahy, and I'm the generally jovial and joyful James Morrow. Now, we've got some breaking news out of Engadine, suburb of Sydney. There's been a car crash and multiple people have reportedly been stabbed, including we're hearing a police officer. So stick with us. We're going to bring you more on that breaking situation a little bit later on in the program. But first, let's go to the United States, where it has been barely 48 hours since the Democrat National Convention ended in Chicago. But already, the much-trumpeted joy of the past week has already started to turn sour. First, there was the news that celebrity entertainment website TMZ was complicit in pumping up rumors that Beyoncé was going to play at the convention on its last night. Something that, if you ask me, was just part of a much bigger, cynical media strategy to pump up viewer numbers in advance of Vice President Kamala Harris's big speech. I know, call me cynical. Then, not long after that, there was another bombshell. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the independent candidate, announced that he was formally dropping out of the race and throwing his support behind, you guessed it, Donald Trump. Now, I don't blame you if you haven't heard a lot about this, because after all, if the media will lie about Beyoncé being in, well, why would they tell you about Kennedy being out of the race? Particularly if this fact might help Donald Trump, who so much of the media now seem to be sworn to work to defeat in November. But Trump and Kennedy made the announcement at a packed arena in Arizona. Have a look and see how wild the crowd goes here.
He's a very low-key person, but he's highly respected. He is a great person. I've known him for so long, for the past 16 months. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
I'm sorry, you cannot fake that kind of energy. You cannot fake that kind of, what's the Democrat like to call it? Joy. Now, Kennedy's supporters also seem to be happy to throw their support to Trump. Supporters like this man.
I think if he does drop out, I think a lot of people are going to still support him regardless. I feel like at this point, the country's kind of turning into everyone else versus the Democrats.
If he drops out, are you going to be in support of Trump?
Yeah, I would.
Now, it's people like that who will be absolutely important in the coming election, because with polls tightening to make it basically an even match between Trump and Harris coming out of the convention, it is now the swing states, the equivalent of what we call here in Australia the marginal electorates, that matter. It could make all the difference in the world. Kennedy has support of around 5 to 6%. Let's not forget, in key states like Arizona, North Carolina, Nevada, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, states the Trump campaign needs to win, and also numbers that are enough to push Trump back out of the margin of error into the winning category. And what we are now seeing is the development of a one-sided contest of ideas. On the Democrat side, they are running from ideas. They just had a week-long love fest in Chicago where all they talked about was bringing the joy while also hating on Donald Trump. But 34 days after deposing Joe Biden from the race, Kamala Harris has still not done anything remotely resembling a real press conference. And one of their biggest ideas, no taxes on tips, was stolen blatantly from the Trump campaign. Now, Kennedy himself called out this media strategy, or lack thereof.
I do interviews every day. Many of you have interviewed me. Anybody who asks gets to interview me. Some days I do as many as 10. President Trump, who actually was nominated and won an election, also does interviews daily. How did the Democratic Party choose a candidate that has never done an interview or debate during the entire election cycle?
Even more importantly than that, in that speech, Kennedy also called out what his party, the party he grew up in as Democrat royalty, he called out what the Democrats have become.
As you know, I left that party in October because it had departed so dramatically from the core values that I grew up with. It had become the party of war, censorship, corruption, big pharma, big tech, big ag, and big money. When it abandoned democracy by canceling the primary to conceal the cognitive decline of the sitting president.
As I always say, the Democrat Party is as democratic as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Not surprisingly, though, networks like CNN and NBC cut away from that speech as soon as RFK started talking about things like corporate censorship. How ironic. Meanwhile, whether or not you like them or not, the Trump, Vance, and now Kennedy team is actually talking about big ideas, even some things that might be controversial, like the Kennedy assassination and big tech and big pharma and all of that and their roles in chronic disease. You know what? Whenever you think of all that, I say, bring it on.